Um, Talk to me a little bit about the relationship between the city council and the administration. Do you think that there are things there that could be maybe improved upon? It seems like at times the two are at odds, the two sides are at odds. Uh,
Well, yeah, I mean, we are at odds at times, and that's fine. We're sort of checks and balances and all that sort of thing. But we, in general, the administration doesn't reach out that much to council. City Utilities does a much better job at reaching out to council than the administration. Um, I wish there would be more contact. I've asked for it. I've even at one of the council meetings suggested to Beth Malloy, the deputy mayor, that she could come to the council table maybe quarterly, and we could set aside a half hour or something for her to address us and us to ask some questions. I mean, not gotcha questions, not get into trying to put you in the trick bag or something like that, but good, honest discussion. I would like to see that. I've extended the offer, and it hasn't happened. I don't know if it's going to happen in an election year, but I think we need to have that, and I think the public would like to see that. And I don't know, there should be no reason to fear better communication between us. And then the result may be we know clearly we're at opposite ends of each other, but that's okay. Each side would have a better understanding of what's going on. It's like, like for instance, when we did the harvester, hired the consultant for the harvester thing, which was fairly controversial, although I understood why Mayor Henry did it. And I don't really fault him for that. Because if he hadn't tried to do something, then he'd been criticized for that. It was sort of a catch-22. But here's my point, Steve, is that they could have come to council and said, we're going to be doing this and this is why. They could have laid the groundwork for it rather than it's just suddenly seemed like it came from nowhere and suddenly we're spending $100,000 on something a lot of people consider a lost cause. Oh, that could have been better explained. That kind of communication could be better. And I'm sure sometimes council can communicate better with the administration, especially when we oppose something. I could have been more forthcoming and call up the mayor or the controller or somebody, say, I'm really having a hard time with this. I can be more. It's got to be more of a two-way street. It's not just the administration; it's council as well.
mm-hmm.
And with council, I think one of the places we do a good job is communicating with staff, department heads, division heads. We tend to work with them more closely than the mayor because everything that comes before council falls under some department or division or whatever. We just got to keep working at that.
Prior approvals, do they need to go? Do they need to stay? Does it need to be improved upon?
Well, I don't like. I think the term prior approval is going to fade off into history. We're going to be looking at ways to get information. Everybody knows it's coming. It isn't. These prior approvals many times just seem like a surprise. Suddenly they're there. Oh, we've got to hurry up and do something right now. Well, is that because somebody didn't get their staff work done, as opposed to it's a real emergency? Now, anytime there's an emergency, then of course you can fast track something. But we can fast track things. There's ways to do it other than using the prior approval, which some people say is not quite legal. And there's a legal way to do it. It's a bit more tricky from a parliamentary view, but nothing terribly difficult, and we can get these contracts approved as quickly as possible. So we're going to have prior approvals under one guise or another. But I think one of the things that Councilman Harper brought up was that there was some problems the way it was being done now. And nobody likes change, so I suppose some people dug in their heels a bit. But the change is here, and we will be getting these contracts through, and they have to go through in a quick manner, but we'll do it in a very fully legal manner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay. One of the things that I've always liked about you as a councilman and as an all-around guy, you've always had some interesting visions, some interesting ideas about what could be. And how important is it for you, not just as even a councilman, but as a resident, how important is it for all of us maybe to have those visions and to think outside the box and to want to be a little bit more than what we are.
Well, it's something I seem to do fairly well. Thank you, God. I like doing it. When I first got involved in that, it was right after you were talking about the blueprint, the downtown blueprint plus. Can't say that terribly fast. And in that, there were these charrettes, and people said, we want to have downtown riverfront development. Okay? So I took it seriously. And I said, okay, where would you build it downtown? What part of the riverfront? What would it look like? And of course, our real downtown riverfront basically is the land across from Lawton Park. You can say it overlooks, what is it? Headwaters Park.
Yep,
Headwaters Park, and you see the skyline, all that. That really is our riverfront. So I had some drawings done, and they've been fairly well publicized over the years, of what it would look like if we built that area out. It was just a way to give people something tangible to look at and see and say, okay, this is what riverfront development could look like. That's important. One of the other ideas I had, I think it was even before the riverfront, was when people were saying, let's get more shops and stores downtown. Well, it just doesn't seem to be happening, even 10 years ago or today, at least not as much as we'd like, and some of them are still leaving. So I said, where can you put shops and stores downtown? In sort of a public-private partnership, not just asking the private people to do it all. And I looked at the Botanical Gardens facility the city owns, the park department owns, and said, look, there's a lot of land in front of that building. Why not wrap that whole facility in shops and stores, sort of make it look like Jefferson Point, for the lack of a better term. And I had these drawings produced, and people loved them, but it just never came about. What really came about, what I think drew most of the city's energy and attention away during probably the very last of Graham's first term and part of his second term, was Harrison Square. It had been bubbling for a while, and all the energy and resources was going to that. That's not a criticism, that's not a fault, it's just a fact. And so some other things that were just as worthy and nice, they're just going to have to wait a while, because we've, Steve, we over the past 6-7 years, the city's probably invested $100 million into buildings and facilities. $25 million for the Public Safety Academy. 30-some million for the ball diamond. $15 million for the parking garage. There's probably at least $5 or $6 million in public dollars in the hotel. $17 million for the Renaissance Square building. And then all the land and everything at Harrison Square and soft costs, that's probably another $12-13 million. You total all that up, it comes to about $100 million. We have spent a lot of money. And so I think in terms of big spending public projects, I think that's probably going to be tamped down now. But there's some other places there where if that kind of facility building is needed, there will be this new capital improvement board. In some years, once that food and beverage tax and all that increases, builds up, there will be millions there, and those dollars could be used for capital projects of one sort or another. But again, we've probably spent $100 million here, and I think it's just time to take a breath, sit back and say, okay, let's make sure all that we have is working fine before we do something else big, unless it's something the citizens want. And one last thing about talking about the riverfront, and this involves the legacy money. Maybe you want to talk about this, but I think it would be wise, with all the interest that this city has had in developing its riverfront, whether it's commercial or just for recreation or whatever it is, now is the time to take maybe $250,000 to $500,000 of that legacy money and finally do a study, get a master plan to find out what can and cannot be done on our riverfront downtown. So if we're going to continue to talk about it, we have some base document, some base plan, to operate from, because we don't even have that yet. We've just got some ideas and some pictures once in a while, like I provide, and a lot of rhetoric. But we need something specific, and maybe some of that money, and I would recommend that maybe up to $500,000 of the legacy fund be used to conduct a study of our riverfront.